Judging whether the conversation was deep enough, whether they were funny enough, were they good listeners, were they interested enough, makes total sense when you are a fearful avoidant, and it is keeping you from so much, including enjoying those conversations. I am Pauline, and I am so happy you are here, because judging the quality of conversations is such a common thing among fearful avoidants. And what I want for you is that you actually enjoy conversations more than you can even think of now. And that it leads to connection. So we are going to dive into that. Why do we do it? Why do we judge? And how can we stop it? How can we stop judging? Because that will free you up too. So I thought this was just a normal thing that everybody did, judging the quality of conversations. And for me, it mostly was this deep enough? Was this really a deep conversation or not? I was also always paying attention to whether they were listening well enough, and whether they were interested enough, and whether their jokes were really funny or not. And yeah, I didn't even notice I was doing it. And as I started healing the fearful avoidant attachment style, I was like, damn, I could have enjoyed all those conversations so much more. So why do we do it? First of all, by judging, you keep control. So a conversation can be intimate and can create connection. And those are beautiful conversations. But for a fearful avoidant, that is the scary part. The fearful avoidant fears connection, where the anxious preoccupied fears abandonment, where the dismissive avoidant fears commitment, the fearful avoidant fears connection. And so when somebody comes too close, which can absolutely happen through conversation, you start judging the conversation and the part that the other one is playing in that conversation. They are not interested enough. They are not funny enough. And that helps you keep control of the amount of intimacy and connection that you feel. So it could actually be that the more judgmental you are, it could be that the more judgmental you are in a conversation, the more potential there is for connection and intimacy. And what I hear so often from the people going through my program is that they judge their partner harshly when it comes to conversations. And I say harshly, not like they're mean, but it means that they hold them to a really high standard of them having to be able to have really deep conversations, but also be funny and quick-witted, also know exactly what to say, and at any given moment they have to be really good listeners. They have to be very, very interested in everything you have to say. And this might sound egocentric or selfish, but a lot of fearful avoidants actually hold themselves to that same standard. You feel like you always have to do that for somebody else too. And so you put a lot of pressure on yourself to do that, and feel like you're failing. So what could happen also is that after social interactions, you evaluate how that was going. And it could be that you're very judgmental towards yourself. You think, did I say something wrong? Was I really paying attention? Did that other person feel rejected by what I said? Did I say something weird? I used to do that after every single social interaction. Do you do that too? Please let me know in the comments below, because I genuinely want to know. So where does this come from? That could be very specifically come from your parents doing that to you. After every single social interaction event, they would say what you did wrong as a child. Like you were too much, you were not listening, you were whatever it may be. They are correcting you, thinking that when they correct you, you will learn, and then when you're older, you will do the right thing. But it could lead to you evaluating constantly, analyzing while you're talking whether you are doing it right, whether you are not making mistakes. So that is just a very obvious cause and effect. If your parent did that to you, of course you're going to do that to yourself now. But what it also leads to is you being very scared of rejection. You kind of assume that everybody is judging you for the quality of the conversation and your part in it. And so then this whole judging other people is a protection mechanism, because if you're afraid to be judged, if you're afraid to be rejected, what is the best way, according to your fear brain, to deal with that? To judge them before they judge you, so that you are in control. And so you start analyzing what they do and don't do, and what they do right and what they don't do right. And as soon as you go into that realm of doing things right or not, you are leaving the realm of connection. Connection does not care about right or wrong. You can say weird things, you can say dumb things, and of course, if you're really being mean, you're also breaking connection. But it doesn't mean that you have to say the perfect thing. Connection just is, and you kind of follow it more than that you say the exact right thing to do the right thing to not be judged and not be rejected. So when you've healed the fearful avoidant attachment style, you'll notice that conversations become so different, so much more free, playful, and you don't evaluate afterwards. I cannot remember the last time I really, out of fear, evaluated a conversation that I had, whether I said something wrong or said something hurtful or should have done better. I do sometimes look back on conversations, but it's not to see what I did wrong or where I could be better. And that has taken away so much of my social anxiety. I used to really struggle with going to friends or having friends over at our house and going to social events, and I just don't anymore, because I don't analyze it anymore. And that really frees up also a lot of energy. So it takes away anxiety, you get more energy, and you just enjoy the conversation so much more. People are really not as scary as you think when you still have that belief. So another reason why you judge the quality of conversations is that fearful avoidants are afraid of connection, but they also really crave deep connection. And you are capable of deep connection. So there's two sides to that. One is, you know how deep conversations can go because you think in a deep way. And therefore, you crave that you can have that with somebody else, and you wish that that was your partner. But also in other conversations, you crave that deepness. But you are also afraid of letting somebody come close. So when a conversation isn't deep, it can hurt because it isn't really fulfilling for you. You're searching for fulfilling deep conversations, and when that's not happening, it makes sense that it kind of makes you sad. Also, it's really hard to really have a deep conversation if you're not vulnerable. And a lot of fearful avoidants are really scared of being vulnerable. So there's a lot of things working in against each other, which is so much the case in the fearful avoidant attachment style. It is one of the most confusing attachment styles, where you're getting pulled in all kinds of different directions. Everything kind of feels like a paradox. So this is another paradox, which is also, I think, why the fearful avoidant attachment style is one of the most exhausting attachment styles to have, because there's just so much resistance, there's so much back and forth, that it just takes so much energy. So when you're tired, if you're tired watching this, it makes sense. It makes sense that you are exhausted, and healing the fearful avoidant attachment style, you'll notice when you've healed, you'll have so much more energy, and funner conversations, and connection is really, can be very nourishing too. So I wish that for you. What I do want to mention, we talk about the fearful avoidant attachment style all the time here, right? And attachment style can definitely be the main cause for judging the quality of conversation. But it could also be there's quite an overlap, especially with the people that have OCD, usually also have a high IQ. So it could be that you crave quality conversations because your mind is a really powerful tool. You have a very powerful mind, and you crave that it gets challenged and that it gets used. And so it can be a little bit frustrating if that doesn't happen. You search for depth and meaning in your conversations and in your relationships. And if that is something that rings true to you, it could really well be that you have a high IQ, even if you think you're dumb or you've heard somebody say sometime that you were dumb. High IQ does not really equate to being good in school, for instance. So it doesn't all have to be trauma. I just want you to know that. It could just be that you're very smart. You're a smart cookie. Then relationship OCD is another thing that a lot of fearful avoidants deal with, struggle with, and that is a core part of the relationship OCD, is that you are obsessed with the quality of relationships. So how good is this relationship? How strong is our bond? How strong is our connection? Which is ironic because in the end you are afraid of the connection also. But that focus, that obsession with the quality of relationships comes from the question, am I safe? Am I safe in this relationship? And so you just see everything that the other person doesn't do right. It can feel as a threat. When they're not interested in you, when they're not really listening to you, you think, oh, they don't understand me, they don't see me. What does that mean? And this comes to play mostly in our relationships. When your partner doesn't, when it feels like your partner doesn't see you or doesn't understand you, you think, oh, my needs are just not going to be met. And so you obsess about them being perfect, while the way out is you learning to listen to your needs and be able to clearly express them. And it is very normal in relationships to have that be a learning curve, that you have to be able to express your needs in a way that your partner understands them. That doesn't mean that it is always your responsibility to express them perfectly, or that you, when they are not met, that it's your fault that you didn't express them clearly. Of course, your partner has to do their part. But a lot of fearful avoidants have never learned to really feel their needs, let alone express them, because they're so afraid that that'll be too much, they will be rejected or abandoned. But so it could be that you are judging the quality of your conversations, especially with your partner, because you are really afraid that if they don't see you, if they don't hear you, if they don't listen to you well enough, if they aren't having deep conversations, that your needs are not going to be met. And that doesn't equate to each other. It's not the truth. And then also we just have good old hypervigilance. When you have trauma, when you've grown up in a chaotic, unpredictable, threatening household, it makes sense that you are hypervigilant in everything. And so you could notice that in conversations, you are hypervigilant too with the other person, and what are they thinking, and am I saying something wrong? Could I be doing something to upset them? And so you search for any little signal that could tell you that something is wrong. And again, we go back to the control thing. When you judge them for what they don't do well in the relationship or in the conversation, it makes it easier for your fear brain to feel safe, because then it's not your fault if somebody is not happy with you. They also didn't do their part. That's fear brain thinking. That is definitely fear brain thinking. That is not connection thinking. So when you've healed the fearful avoidant attachment style, you'll notice that you just don't feel the need to judge that much anymore, or to analyze that much anymore. And then what is also the case is that you're expecting perfection from others, especially, again, our partner. Um, because if they aren't perfect, it feels like they aren't trying, and that means they must not love me. Do you recognize this? Let me know in the comments below, because I remember so well when Aryan would not listen in the way I think I thought he should listen, or he didn't say the exact thing I wanted to hear, or I felt like our conversation wasn't deep enough. It almost always felt like he didn't love me. Like there was this train of thought that always led to, oh, he must not love me. And I realized that that had to do with me feeling like he didn't really put in the effort. He didn't really try to completely see me. So you probably hold yourself to a really high standard. And also you hold your partner to that same high standard. So it's not even weird for you. It's like, isn't that just normal that you are able to have really deep conversation and be funny and be very interested all the time? And what we don't do is take into account how our partner is feeling. I remember that Aryan once said, honey, I just had a really long work day. I did not sleep well last night. And there was another thing. I don't have the mental capacity to completely listen right now. Let me take care of myself because I care about you and I do want to listen to you. And I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, okay. So I really had to learn to not take it personally, And also what I loved is I was so afraid of not being able to have deep conversation with Aryan the way I had with my parents, which when I look back on it was more pretty judgmental conversations about like the world, and that made me feel bonded with my parents. So I don't even really know if I knew what deep conversations truly meant, but it just felt like Aryan wasn't able to have deep conversations with me. And then I heard I asked this question at some point to a couple who had been married for a long time. And I said, what if we don't really have deep conversations? How are we going to build our bond and be more connected? And she said, oh, honey, life is going to give you so much situations to have deep conversations about and to bond. And I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. So I don't have to create drama. I don't have to create problems. I think that was my literal question. Like, we don't have a lot of problems, so how do we have deep conversations to strengthen our bond? I need problems. Give me drama. And she said, oh, life will just give you those situations and you will work through it together. And that's what happened. And now I never, ever think that we are not capable of having deep conversations anymore. It's like, yeah, it almost feels funny without trying to be disrespectful at all, but that I was so preoccupied with that because we have the most beautiful conversation and we are also just, having fun together and feeling light in the world. And after healing the fearful avoidant attachment style, I think that is one of the things that surprised me the most, that I don't really need that that depth that I was craving, because that depth was kind of related to trauma. And I just enjoy small talk even more than I did way back when. I still love deep conversation. Like, I love doing this with you. I love talking about, philosophical things. I love diving into subjects and just completely exploring them. But it's not that I need that in every single conversation. I can just enjoy a conversation for what it is and just kind of follow the connection where it's going. And that can either be very deep, or it can be just, light, or it can just be about nothing. And it's fine. So healing this has changed social interactions completely for me. And I enjoy pretty much every social interaction now. I just love people. I love being with people. I love talking to people, and listening to people. And I don't judge. I know what I like and what I don't like. It's not that I just talk to everybody and sit in conversations for hours with somebody who I don't vibe with, who I don't have a connection with. But I don't have expectations as much anymore. I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, let me know. I'll make another video or I'll answer you in the comments. But I just want you to know that there is a moment where you have healed the fearful avoidant attachment style and you just enjoy conversation so much, and it feels so much lighter and easier and more meaningful at the same time. And you go home actually feeling fulfilled, and or go to bed feeling fulfilled, and it feels good, and you look back on it just with positive feelings instead of evaluating and analyzing. And you have such different conversations, which is beautiful when you release this, and you have so much more energy, and you will enjoy social gatherings so much more. So if that's what you want, please check out the program Healed and Happy, because it's an amazing program. And it will take you through healing the roots of the fearful avoidant attachment style. So you don't have to heal every single thing that I talk about in every video. It's when you heal a lot of the roots, so many things like this one just kind of falls away. And you're like, oh yeah, I used to have that issue. I don't have that anymore at all. And life just becomes lighter and more fun, and it becomes easier to connect to other people, which can be such a source of joy and nourishment, which I so wish for you. So you can find that link in the description below. As always, I am so happy you were here, and I will see you in the next one. Healed and Happy is a tailor-made online program where me and my team personally guide you through healing the roots of the fearful avoidant attachment style.